Welcome back to the Press Club. Before the break, we were talking about the Trinidad elections and you're talking about media coverage of that election and our understanding of the system. But if we look at media coverage generally, the same...
Of elections?
Elections, yeah. The issues here are not dissimilar in the United States, where the media has taken a beating over the years for its coverage of elections and election campaigns. By not focusing enough on the issues by the media themselves, whether it's not having an understanding so much of the procedures, or is it that there's so much competition that everybody is trying to out-jockey the other media house by focusing less on the issues and covering the election campaign more as what has been referred to as a horse race. So it's more like you're covering sports or athletics. You know, you're looking for the drama and the color.
Up to the finish line.
Not so much focusing on the issues. Was that an issue in this case, do you think?
Yes, I think...
even in the run-up to our own election.
Yeah, because I'm saying is that we have been thinking and talking about the next election longer or earlier than we started thinking about giving attention to the Trinidad election. So the Trinidad election campaign came while we were already speculating as to whether the election is going to be next year or in the first quarter of 2017. In that context, the only concern I've heard raised so far has been about security of the press during the election campaign. I would also like us to be able to say, okay, how can we make this campaign different? The Voice, in an editorial many moons ago, suggested that the press can help promote the idea of bringing back town hall meetings, and not just on issues relating to fuel and public issues, but also to see whether that could metamorphose into the politicians beginning to engage in actual debates, you know, in preparation ahead of the election. How do we still need, because in the past I have known the previous media, St. Lucia Media Workers Association, we worked on, when elections come in, a code of conduct, you know, a code of conduct in coverage, where, you know, we would say, this is how we would like to cover. These are the things we would like to hear from, you know, the parties. These are the things. So we prepare. The media houses and the media workers would let the political parties and the state know where we stand on it. The issues have come up in the constitutional debate relating to party campaign financing. We tend to wait until close to the campaign for one party or the other, or an external force like the OAS, which has actually given the government of St. Lucia a formula for consideration for pre-election campaign financing. Would we like to see that implemented? When will it be implemented? Will the political directorate who would be affected by it, and on whose decision, you know, its future is based, will they agree to that? Do we have a role in getting people to understand the implications of campaign financing?
I was about to ask you, who dictates that? Does the media have enough control, as you suggesting, to dictate to the politicians what the agenda should be, or do the politicians dictate to the media?
No, neither of the above. I'm saying that the role of the media is not just to report on what the Commission recommends or what the politicians, how the politicians may respond, but to let the voters and the constituents who it is going to affect know that if the recommendation is taken, you cannot go and give your party, your candidate, $100 without signing a bill and a receipt, and he can't take it and put it in, he or she can't take it and put it in their pocket without declaring it. You know, you cannot make an offer, because it would require that every single contribution, monetary contribution, to a campaign or to a candidate will have to be declared.
Yeah, but would that even make it on the agenda? Because the same complaint that I'm talking about in the US has been that politicians traditionally shy away from dealing with controversial issues such as what you're talking about here, because to a large degree they don't think that the populace, the citizenry, understands these issues, so why dwell on it? At the same time, you have a media fraternity driven by ratings, motivated by competition, the desire to outjockey, you know, the next competitor, you know, who are covering the elections, as I said, like a horse race, more or less. So they're not focused on the issues. Their interest is in quick sound bites, you know, that you can fit into a 2-minute story or report, you know, and you don't have time for, you know, talking heads for politicians to go, you know, on and on about an issue like campaign finances that, you know, you think that
and that is where we have to, I'm saying let's not resign to the facts, acceptance of the facts that you've just described. I'm saying that our role as individuals and professionals on, let's take the issue of campaign financing. I would want to do a story going to a business person out there who I know contributes financing to both parties every election, and ask him or her on or off the record how you feel about that, because you will now have to declare that you have funded both parties, because in your view, whichever one wins, you'll be able to be in favor. Sorry, I mean business people who contribute to parties. You know, I always tell some very close political friends that business people don't support parties, they support governments, because parties can help business people. So I would want to do a story, and if there is any reporter or journalist in St. Lucia who can find somebody in the business community who contributes or has contributed, well, I mean, might want to look for another job. So a story on how that person would feel about having to declare that contribution, because even without declaring it, both parties know they get from that person. But, you know, as the wind blows is how we've gone away with that. My next story, I would like to go to Mr. Joe Onmablo, who we know always in red and yellow, you know, depending on which party they're in, and will always contribute from their earnings to their party support group, you know, as a member. And we would say to them that, do you know that when that law passes, you have to declare everything that you give to your candidate? You know, what will that mean for you? You know, will your husband like to know that? Will your family like to know that? Because you're most likely doing it without anybody knowing. That's your private business right now. But supporting your party financially will no longer be a private affair. It will have to be public. Now, campaign financing laws exist in the United States, but it's still a situation where, what do you say, necessity is the mother of invention. Fellas find ways around it. And today, Donald Trump is 27% in the lead. You know, he's leading the Republican field with 27%, and Rick Perry has just pulled out because Rick Perry can't pull the amount of money that Donald Trump can pull, even without touching his own money. And the American press, including, sorry, excepting Fox, everybody else interprets Donald Trump's high ratings as an expression of popular disgust with the traditional politician, because the religious right has also thrown their support behind him, and they admit it's not because he is religious, because you have Huckabee and all these other guys who are religious. To what extent does that type of consideration factor in our own assessment of the American election? So those of us who follow the U.S. press are able to come up to certain conclusions in terms of how we see and how we interpret the leadership that Trump is showing. The other big story across the Atlantic, the refugee crisis in Europe. Fortress Europe is now being invaded, you know, by chickens coming home to roost, in my view, from the West's involvement in other continents. The people are running from the wars fanned, began, and sustained by Western Europe and by Europe and the United States. So the extent to which now Europe faces a dilemma, where by the time this program is shown, 500,000 people will have crossed the Mediterranean this year alone and landed in Europe, and Europe is divided on the issue, with Britain and East European states saying, hello, we don't want this type of unchecked. And what's happening now is that the people smugglers have got in on the thing. They have a bonanza there now. It's just put people on boats and send them across. And what is happening now is, with UN and human rights intervention, is coming up with clash against the sovereignty within borders. Because when the people land in Greece and wherever, they want to go through to Hungary, they're heading for Germany. Now they are being given the impression that because they are refugees, they have a right to enter and cross borders, you know, without declaring. And that is what the East European states, particularly Hungary, are saying. Listen, you want to pass through my borders, you have to declare. Now these people don't have passports, and the majority of them refuse to fingerprint or to declare who they are. And now Britain and France and a number of others are saying that their big concern is that ISIS, ISIL, etc. are exporting terrorists to Europe through this open door. And that is why they want to institute certain security measures. But the point I want to make here is that the people smugglers always know how to take advantage of a situation, and that is why when we had the tip of the iceberg with regard to the people smuggling issue here, it is against my understanding of how it could metamorphose so fast when the people smugglers think they have buttonholed a state into feeling sorry for the result of their criminal action, which is smuggling people from one place to another in pursuit of greener pastures.
Well, that's
brighter
an
dreams.
evolving issue. I'm sure will be around next week for us to discuss. We're out of time.
Don't we have another?
No, we don't.
Saturdays,
thank you.
Saturdays come and go like that.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here, Mr. Bousky, and thank you for watching. We'll be back here next week with another program. I'm Kendall Burton. On behalf of Mr. Earl Bousky, have yourselves an enjoyable weekend. Stay safe.